Welcome to the Poetry Certificates, and I truly hope that this adventure and work is meaningful and rewarding to you. The poems that you'll encounter have been carefully selected, and we hope that their examples can help you get better as a poet, definitely help you expand the amount of poetry you've been reading, even just with the 50 or so poems that you'll have here and will give you confidence in following the model and imitating the moves, if you will, that this work makes, so that you can not only do what you do better, but perhaps be able to do more things with your poetry. Our approach is not to write poetry together at this point. Our approach is to say, you've been involved in poetry, it's very good for you, it's very personal, it's something that you really like. That's why you're here. And let's take some time with these videos and these certificates to focus on a side of the coin that often gets ignored for people that are trying to produce, and that's to be passive and to be an audience, not just to be active and a producer. Um, read, read a lot of good poetry, and read with intention, read with strategy, and this will help you grow in your work as you find lessons that you've discovered and then are, you know, re-emphasized in some of the lectures. You can take those principles and then you can go back to your work and you can see yourself getting better. So, you know, whoever is with you on this journey, for example, here, me, my job is not to be looking at your poetry and to suggesting how it gets better. My job is to just walk with you as we look at a work that's already been recognized as great work. All right, so let's look at some of the guiding principles. Uh, the poetry we're focusing on here is modern poetry. Modern poetry is looser in scheme. Now, these are just general principles. I'm sure we'll find some exceptions, some particularly tight and technically brilliant work. A.E. Housman comes to mind, as does Frost, for people that can still be very much almost perfect with their rhyming and their meter. All right, so rhyme is obviously when the ending of lines or the middle of lines, when words sound alike. Duh. But meter is the way accent falls on a normally read line. Um, and there are different types of ways we can look at a word that has one syllable, two syllables, three syllables, and we can put that accent for the two syllable word or three syllable word on different. We can find words that usually have the accent on the last syllable or on the second to last, the penultimate, and that affects how the sound the poem sounds when it's read aloud. All right, so uh, rhyme and meter have been very important to the history of poetry, but for our study here, uh, the modern taste and what we're going to be doing here has accepted a much looser approach. Sometimes there's going to be rhyme, sometimes they're going to be slant rhyme. The words kind of sound alike. Sometimes it's really more assonance where the vowels are are really harmonizing, if you will, as the poem is read. But we're not really going to be focusing on rhyme in terms of perfect rhyme or its rhyme schemes, and also meter will be mentioned every now and then, but it's not going to be something that we're going to be really focusing on as a device to make your poetry better. All right. A lot of the poems we'll be looking at is going to treat meter as sort of a fluid concept. All right. Now, the second right here is you need to read to write better. I've talked about that already, and that's what we're doing. That's what the first levels of certificates are for the poetry work we offer. The third mentions lyrical, all right, or the lyric poems. So what type of poetry are we going to be looking at? Well, there's epic poetry, there's dramatic poetry, and then there's lyric poetry. Shakespeare is your drama poet that we all know, and uh, epic would be Homer or Dante, writing these huge, wonderful stories. Um, but Virgil with the Aeneid, that's your epic poetry, your drama poetry. We don't really do plays in verse anymore, but that again is really an established part of poetry's history in the Western world. So, but we're going to be looking at the standalone lyric, the the poem that is just composed within its first line and its last line, and it's there presented as simply a poem. It's not a play. It's not a huge national story, um, or a story of national origins. And specifically, we're going to be focusing on short lyric. I think that's very encouraging for people who are trying to write poetry. And the smaller of a thing we can work with that is legitimately still a poem, I think the more we can make progress in our work. Um, 4 and 5 are really examples of some of the things we're going to bring to these lectures. Okay, so I might have been able to have written a 6 or a 7 here. We'll get to those down the line, but these are examples of things that will show up a lot in our discussions and I want you to remember these as you read poetry, right? The poetry we have, and one is the poetic moment. All right, so many times yeah, okay, that word moment is interesting. You can do a little word study online, just go to etymology online or type it in, type Google, what's the root of the word moment, And it obviously, in our current usage has to do with time, uh, a very quick slice of time, usually identified as our present or whatnot, in this moment. But the word is also very much strongly connected to momentum and momentous, and that just means weighty and important and carrying force, if you will. A car that's going, a 2-ton vehicle that's going 50 miles, an hour has a lot of momentum. There's this driving power to it. And let's use both of those senses to look at these poems. There's many of these poets are gonna experience something in their day or in their life. I mean, if these experiences happen in days, so let's just say day. They're gonna have a day where something happens to them. It's an experience, and they realize there's an important something here. This is a moment in my day that has gone deeper, that is layered, that is somehow more important, more momentous, if you will. And they can recognize, oh, this would make a good poem. And it might be in a conversation where something gets mentioned, or in a walk they go on, or just washing dishes in the sink, mowing the lawn. It could be all sorts of things. But the modern poet is very much aware of things that happen to them, and they try to find. There's going to be a lot of poetry you read in these certificates where in the curriculum here where you see that it was this idea that this one event, this one micro event, or this one moment in time, the thing that happened there is potential of a poem. Because, well, let's go ahead and talk about number 5, concept scaling or reapplication. Because this concept that you run into, this event, whatever, can be used as a symbol, as a metaphor, right, for a deeper concept that we're all involved in. And this concept can show up not only in moments like this, but in other areas as well. There's a connection to a lot of areas in life in this one activity, right? So um, the poetic moment can be turned into can be used as a metaphor, as symbol for concepts, for experiences that human beings consider important, and also, I don't want to say common as if they're everyday events, but you're gonna have these things happen to you in your life if you live a decent amount of years and just keep your eyes open. You're going to run into the concepts that the poem is trying to talk about, and the poem is trying to say, in this concrete, experience that I've had, losing my keys, for example, the very first poem we're going to read here, losing my keys. This is really about loss, and about repetitive loss, and about loss that can be delayed, loss that can be accepted. And it, we all have experienced loss. and we've all thought about it. So, the act of losing one's keys can be can scale and can be reapplied. We can talk about losing a loved one, right? Because we're really talking about loss. And then we can maybe reapply it to from losing physical things like the body, the keys, to losing mental things like faith. And I think of Matthew Arnold's, on Dover Beach, where he's asking about the loss of faith. So, uh, so let's just remember that many of these poems, I will be talking about the poetic moment that is there, and then we need to see how that moment is extended or scaled so that we can relate to it. And that moment is going to be a physical thing that happens many times. That is also very important. So remember the two meanings to the word moment. Thank you for watching.